All right, let me just give a brief blurb about Raffaella Borasi. She is a professor in the Warner School of Education. She was the dean of the Warner School of Education for 17 or 18 years. I think 17 years.
18 and a half to be precise, but
18 and a half. That's a long time to lead a school, and we have seen a great trajectory of the school, including a new building for the Warner School of Education. And she has a PhD in mathematics education, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she's into STEM as well. So when you want to do interdisciplinary work, it's often difficult to work with different people. They have different ways of looking. I think Dr. Borasi is one of the exceptions who embraces interdisciplinary research. She's eager to explore the boundary between education and many other disciplines. She recently received an award along with many other colleagues on the future of work and its relationship with creativity in the context of music. So as we talk about future of online learning in the context of COVID, I could not think of a better educator than Dr. Borasi to engage and learn more from. So on that note, thank you, Dr. Borasi, for your time and being here with us today.
Oh, thank you. I really not only embrace but enjoy interdisciplinary work, and I guess that's one of the legacy of being a dean. I had very quickly to get beyond my small world of math education and learn about counseling and leadership and human development. And so it really gave me a taste of how valuable it is to work across discipline. And I think that if you're working in data science or artificial intelligence, it's a must because your application are probably going to be all in different fields. So I hope that you will develop the same appreciation and enjoyment to work interdisciplinary. So would you like me to start my presentation or?
Sure. Yeah, and we have given them heads up. They will speak for around 25 to 30 minutes. And then you have 4 different themes where we're gonna break students into breakout rooms, and we'll spend around 10 to 15 minutes discussing with each other. And then we'll bring you back and we'll do a debrief.
Yeah, so, and again, I'll try to keep my presentation as short as I can so that we have more time to work together. So I will share screen and show. Sorry, it always takes a moment to get started. Okay. So first of all, when I was asked to talk about online teaching, and then I saw the kind of readings that you have been doing, obviously online teaching and online learning has become much more common and much more at the forefront of what we all are thinking in education because of the COVID-19 situation. But I also want to put it in a larger context because again, online education has been going on for a long time before, and I think it will stay after. And I also think that there are some issues about online education and some opportunities that may be particularly interesting for applications and synergistic work with AI. So again, as Isan said, I'm starting with an introduction and talking about the specific education problems that I think AI can help address, and then do the small groups and the question and answer. So let me start again, as I said, online education, it's not something that just came out as we had to go to remote teaching because of the pandemic. In 2018, there were already 35% of all higher education course enrollment were in online courses. And I'm not talking of MOOCs, I'm talking of real online courses, though many of them could have been also in for-profit universities and others in university like ours. We can certainly expect though that that will continue to increase post-COVID because one of the biggest obstacles, if you want, to embrace online education in a traditional institution has often been faculty resistance, in part because of fear of the unknown, in part because of the investment that one has to put into learning about how to teach online and the technology. Now that investment, whether we like it or not, has been made almost everywhere, so we can expect that both teachers and students would probably be more open and interested in online education. But online may mean a lot of different things. I know that oftentimes when people talk of online, they think of MOOCs. MOOCs, I mean the courses in Coursera or edX that are offered to 10,000 students. And indeed, that's one potential application of online education. But more and more, we see that online courses are just an alternative or a different modality to what we may want to do when we offer educational opportunities in traditional universities. And even there, though, there isn't just one kind of online courses. Really, there are a lot of differences between what you may call online courses. In fact, I would say that more and more we are blurring the boundaries between what is considered a traditional course that is enhanced by online learning and what is a fully online course on the other hand. You know, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, but first I wanted to say, why is it that online is so popular or has been increasing in popularity? In part is that regardless of whether we consider that online instruction has the same quality or learning opportunities as traditional instruction, there are some new functionalities that are really important to consider. One is the increased access and convenience. Again, we can do this presentation, I can do it from my home. I don't have to worry about wearing a mask, but even if it was in normal circumstances, I wouldn't have to travel. You could do this if I was in my home in Italy or if I was in China, and that distance would not make any difference. And the same for students who instead may be traveling long distances to come here. But even more interesting for me than that is the new learning opportunities that online can offer, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, for which I mean that there are things that learning experiences that students can do in an online course that were not possible to even think before. Think, for example, a virtual reality simulation that will allow you to do things that, again, before was too expensive or too risky to do. Also, it opens new pathways. Maybe students don't need to go for a 4-year college education or a residential 2-year master's degree. Maybe there are different ways to build credentialing that you can do through different kind of online courses. So all of those things are really the kind of things that open up new possibilities for online, and at the same time, the opportunity for AI to have a contribution. Before I go further about talking about that, I wanted, though, as I said, online can mean very different things. And part of it is also more generally, how can you integrate technology in instruction? It could be a continuum between, again, traditional courses where we start having more and more use of technology to fully online courses where you never meet and you may have even a totally asynchronous kind of interactions. So to give you a better sense of these different types of integration of technology in teaching, I wanted to show you a video that I found very powerful in terms of thinking about these different possibilities. So I'll stop share here so that I can, let me see if I can end slideshow. And I'm going to show the video. So this video is going to give you a framework to think about different types, complementary types of integration of technology in teaching on 2 dimensions. One is more a technology dimension, and one is more a dimension in terms of the kind of involvement of the student in the learning experience. So let me share again, see if I can manage. Okay, and I hope
Technologies are invented, they often provide many new ways of thinking and doing things. For example, how have smartphones changed the way we live and work, or tablets, or even the internet? However, one problem we have as humans is that often we can't imagine very well the new possibilities available from new technologies. So instead we use them just to do the same things we have always done before. Teachers struggle with this too. We often teach the way we were taught and struggle to think of how we could teach better based on the technologies we have that our teachers did not have. Richard Culotta, former director of the Office of Educational Technology for the U.S. Department of Education, shared the following concern.
Here's the issue. If we are not careful, if we are not super cautious about all the decisions we make, in a very short amount of time, by the time the freshmen that are in this room have graduated, we will have a complete digital replica of the traditional practices that are not working today. And we will have everything that we have now. It will just be on a screen instead of on paper, and it will be just as ineffective, and it will cost a whole lot of money, and we'll be just as stuck as we will, and not have another ticket to play to be able to make a change.
Our goal is to help you think critically about the technology you'll use in your classroom, and to begin to see the potential technology has to transform and engage students in the learning experience in new ways. To begin, we're going to show you a technology integration framework. Frameworks are tools we use to begin conversations. In this case, conversations about how we should use technology to improve student learning. Let me introduce the RAP model. The first letter R represents replacement. Replacement can mean the following. 1. Changes the appearance or dressing of our practices, but not the practice itself, making digital copies of traditional practices, recycling instruction. 2. It doesn't affect teaching or learning practices and behaviors. 3. Can still be a useful use of technology because it can increase access. For example, a digital worksheet won't get lost or eaten by your dog, but it doesn't really impact or improve learning. The A in RAT equals amplifying. In other words, technology improves the efficiency of tasks or introduces new functions to original tasks. The T in RAT equals transforming. It introduces new activities in learning that are impossible without technology. Take away the technology, take away the learning too. Next in our PIC-RAT model is the PIC portion. P equals passive. In other words, students are observers, bystanders in their learning. The I equals interactive. Students engage in material in an interactive way. They are active learners. The C equals creative. Students are creating materials themselves. They are creative learners instead of passive or active ones. This is the apex of student engagement, and students often learn deeper when they have to create something using the content. By combining PIC and RAT together, we create a matrix of the many different ways technology can influence teaching and learning. You could use a technology that replaces a face-to-face conversation and where students are passive learners, such as a video lecture, or where they get to interact back through technology, such as a video conversation, or where they get to learn by creating their own videos in a way that completely transforms the way you typically teach. The PIC-RAT model is a great tool for helping you to think about your teaching and how you use technology in the classroom. None of the squares on the matrix is necessarily a bad way to teach. Sometimes it's good to be a passive learner, for example, and listen to others, such as in this video. But a good teacher will continually evaluate their practice and think how they can improve. Using the PIC-RAT model can help you think about what kinds of ways you could use technology that will help students be more active and creative as learners, and ways that transform your teaching to levels you hadn't considered before. So when you hear about a new technology, don't just ask what it can do for you that you already are doing anyway. Think PIC-RAT and see if there's a way this technology can help you transform your teaching in positive ways.
Okay, so I think that you can imagine that what I would love to do today is in fact discuss with you how artificial intelligence can be this transformative force, not just replacing things that we are doing today, but allowing us to do things that we couldn't do before in education. But before we go there, I wanted to make a connection also with this framework and what has happened, I think, during the pandemic with online education. Most of the time, we are in the passive replacement box, the bottom one, because many instructors just thought, okay, I was lecturing before, now I lecture online. But it's still being passive and it's still using the technology just to substitute what you were doing before. What we would want to do is to say instead, now that we are forced to use a technology, are there ways in which we can use a technology to augment or transform what we were doing? And even more, challenge ourselves not just to engage the student passively, but to use a technology to make them more interactive and possibly creative. So those are the kind of things that I hope, again, you can keep in mind as we keep talking and exploring possible application or uses of artificial technology for the future of education. So I'm going back again to my, let me share screen again. Slideshow. Sorry, I lost my point. So, okay. So I chose 4 particular problems of education that I think it would be worth to discuss together in terms of seeing what are the potential of AI to transform online teaching and maybe teaching even more generally. A first problem that I think people encounter when they think about really utilize the potential of online education for increasing access is a problem of scaling. So if we really want to lower the cost of education and increase access that way, what we need to be able to do is, in a sense, do what the MOOCs are doing. Figure out a way to reach a much larger number of people with a teacher-student ratio that is much different than what we have in the regular classes. But we want to have that while keeping the same kind of quality and the same kind of interaction that really make teaching valuable and the courses that you are in worthwhile. So how can we think about scaling in the sense of providing the same quality but having an instructor be able to serve more students? What you need to really think about is what is it that we can eliminate or minimize of routine tasks that take instructor time. Some of those things could be questions or stuff that maybe could be answered by a chatbot or in some other ways. Another really important thing, I think, is providing meaningful individualized feedback. Problem with MOOC is most of the time you have just quizzes, multiple choice quizzes, because they're the easy way to test. But as I said before, testing and assessment are not necessarily the same thing, and we know that individualized feedback is very important. Could AI help us do that? Also, we want to be able to assess complex skills and mindset. Once again, it's not that tests and exams are useless, but they're not really the best way to assess complex skills. So could we use maybe, again, VR or other technology to have people actually perform certain tasks and be able to evaluate what they can be doing? And even more importantly, can we have a machine evaluate that and providing feedback rather than having a one-on-one instructor having to do that? Another big potential of online education is also customization. What I mean is when you are in a class and you have 20 people in front of you, whatever you do has to be okay for all 20 people. But when you're online, oftentimes you can give choices and you can have people do different things that may be more at their level of knowledge and capacity or more appropriate to their interest. Doing that, though, is not easy. You need to figure out what is each learner relevant knowledge, what is their learning speed, and also you don't want to take away the fact that learners learn from each other, and therefore you don't want all activity to be isolated. So are there ways, again, that we might use some artificial intelligence or machine learning to more easily adapt to where a learner is in terms of different paths that they can take in their journey? Enhancing learning opportunity. I already mentioned before that technology can allow us now to do things, provide learning opportunities that people could not have before. For example, access to primary document. You could have them easily through share screen from a library, but you can't bring them to the classroom. You could have simulation, especially virtual simulation. The interesting thing about that, though, is also that once you open up the use of some of these technologies, you may now be able to do things you weren't able to do before. So that's what I mean for opening up to the possibility of new roles. I've been fascinated in particular about the fact that some scientists are using machine learning as a way to analyze lots of data, as a way to generate hypotheses, not just to test hypotheses, which is something that actually could change the approach to some scientific inquiry. So what I think it would be really worth for us to think about is, first of all, envisioning what are new things that technology can allow learner to do that we cannot do now, and then trying to identify what are appropriate courses, content, and goals where these things can reside, and how we can, again, develop some tasks and learning activity that makes this possible. Finally, I wanted to talk about enabling self-directed study. One of the advantages of online is that you can be more self-paced, you can do things at your own convenience and time, but the downside of that is that many online students don't succeed because they don't have the time management skills, the drive, the capacity to actually keep up with the work. And so they fall and don't finish courses. What we can ask ourselves, though, is, are there ways in which maybe, again, with artificial intelligence, with some kind of assistant, we could help students develop some methods or some ways to get guidance and support or to deal with time management. Another thing also that I've encountered a lot is we have so many opportunities of online courses, MOOCs, etc. out there. But how can you choose? How can you figure out what's quality, what is not? How can you figure out what is something that really meets your personal needs and interests? Again, I'm hoping that there could be a way that, with the very sophisticated ways that Google now can help us choose content and search, would there be ways that we could actually search learning opportunities for us? This is really just touching the surface. But as I said, I really wanted more to pose some questions and some opportunities to you in these 4 areas. And then what I'd like to do now is to have us divide up in 4 groups. Each group will focus on one of the 4 problems that, that I presented. And think about these 2 questions. What more would you like to know about the educational problem to be solved? What application of AI could help address some of the challenges identified? And to help us with that, I don't know if this will work. Can you see this, the spreadsheet? Can you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can see
Okay.
it. Yes.
So I'm going to put this link to the Google Doc in chat, so every one of you can go in. But essentially, when you're assigned to a group, whether it's scaling, customizing, enhancing learning, or enabling self-directed learning, you will go to the tab for that group. And then what I put here is the challenges to be addressed, as well as a reminder of the potential benefit. And I'm asking you guys to discuss again what are questions you may have about the educational challenge, what are ideas of possible application, and have one person in your group take notes. That way we will have a record at the end of what we want to do. So let me again stop share.
So how long should they have?
What time is it now? 55. I would say let's have 15 minutes.
15 minutes, okay. I'm going to try to do this manually. So
and you divide as I assume randomly, right?
Now I'm going to try to do this not randomly, so that I'm going to do this subjectively. Okay. I will not put you or myself in a room so that we both can hop from one room to another.
That's great.
Let me do this manually and see.
Yeah. So first thing though, before you send us to the breakout room, please make sure you can click the link in the chat box so that you can get to the Google Doc and everyone can contribute to that. Okay, then up to you. Any question about the task? Is it clear what you're supposed to do? Okay. Great.
Sean, did you want to be part of a group?
part of the group.
Okay.
Well, again, while we're waiting, any comment or any question about what I've said so far?
I gotta be honest, the rat video, I was really into that. I thought that was kind of funny and cute and got its and got its point across really well, that like, even though it's like, oh, we have so much great technology, but the guy was like just taking notes the same way.
Yes.
So it's like, yeah, we have this technology, but like, are you really fundamentally changing the way that you're doing a process?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think it's easy.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Go ahead. No, I just think it's interesting how you kind of developed a framework around how, I mean, I think it's basically taking lower value add functions of a teacher and saying, how do we automate this so that the teacher can really focus their time on the higher value added functions and the learners can do the same.
By the way, just to be clear, the PICRAD is not my framework. That's something that is out there, and I'm just borrowing for this. But I'm making also the connection to say it's not just technology in general, but let's think particularly about artificial intelligence. How is it that you can use it to, again, do things you couldn't do before, like freeing time for an instructor to do the really important thing, which also raises the question, what are the really important things? Is that lecturing, or is it giving individualized feedback, or is it trying to understand how to match learner interest to tasks? I mean, all those are interesting questions to me.
I actually have a question. In regards to these 4 points, I kind of thought of it in terms of higher education first, and I was thinking about, did you think about all different levels, like primary, secondary, higher education, and are those 4 points ubiquitous across the levels? Because especially for enabling self-directed study, that's much easier in a higher education setting than, say, an adolescent or kindergarten even.
Definitely, I agree with your point, and I don't want to come across as a supporter of online teaching no matter what. What I really would like to convey is that technology and online teaching has a lot of power or potential to improve teaching, but you need to really think carefully how and when. I'm really cringing when I know that there are kindergartners in the city school district right now that are doing all of their learning and teaching online. It's tough enough to try to manage physically 20 kids that are running around in their room, but can you imagine the difficulty of trying to do it if you are on another side of the screen? So definitely there is a question about maturity and age that we have to consider, but I also think that we can figure out ways in which we can support people who may not have already certain kind of skills, or may have some learning disabilities that make it really difficult to do certain things, and think about how is it that we can use AI or other kind of technology to support that. Actually, in many cases, we know that students with disabilities, if you provide a technology that accommodates for their particular problems, they can then almost be on par at what the other students in the class are. So it's actually a very interesting thing, in my opinion.